The call came at 2:47 on a Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of a patient intake form I'd been trying to finish for 20 minutes. I almost missed it, my phone buzzing against my thigh through my scrub pocket. But I never miss it when Milo calls. I bought him that watch specifically so I would never miss it. He couldn't form words at first. Just shaky breath and a kind of gulping that told me, before he said anything at all, that he had been crying for a while and was trying very hard not to be. "Mommy." A pause. "Uncle Anton says you're not allowed home anymore." I went completely still. "He says it's his apartment now. Him and Kira's. He put my stuffed animals in a pile." Then softer, almost a whisper. "He said I'm not supposed to call you." I heard Anton's voice behind him, flat and unhurried. "Hey, give it here, buddy." The line cut out. I was already standing up. I want to go back to the beginning, because that Tuesday didn't fall out of a clear sky. Nothing like it ever does. It took months to build, one small permission at a time, and I was the one handing them over. My name is Georgia, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a medical office administrator at a family health clinic on Barton Street in Hamilton, Ontario. It is not a glamorous job, but it is steady, and for the last 2 years steady has been exactly what I needed. My days are predictable in the way I built them to be. Up at 6:30, Milo dressed and fed and dropped at Westmount Public School by 8. Then my shift until 4:30, then pickup, then supper, then bath, then the part of the evening I count down to all day. Milo tucked in, telling me things about his grade 1 class in that chatty, half-asleep way where the sentences don't always connect but the feeling underneath them does. Milo is 6. He has been mine to protect since he came into the world, and I have never once taken that lightly. His father, my ex, Darren, moved to Calgary a year and a half ago after our marriage ended. He pays child support, sees Milo at Christmas and 1 week in the summer, and for the most part we manage it without drama. The marriage just ran out, the way some things do, and we were both honest about it before it got worse. The hard part of that year wasn't the divorce. The hard part was building a life from scratch at 29, with a 4-year-old, and a mortgage. I had no idea how I was going to carry a loan. That mortgage. Let me tell you about it. I bought my condo in 2022. A 2-bedroom unit on the 4th floor of a mid-rise building in Stony Creek, on the east end of Hamilton. It is not large. The 2nd bedroom barely fits Milo's bed and a small dresser, and the kitchen is the kind where 2 people have to take turns. But my name is on the title. My name is on the deed. I put every cent of my grandmother Elsa's $18,000 into the down payment, along with everything I had saved in my FHSA, and I stood in the lawyer's office and signed my name at the bottom of more papers than I had ever signed in my life, and I walked out of there holding a key. My monthly mortgage runs $1,380. On a medical admin salary, after child support contributions and daycare, that is what people politely call tight. I know exactly where every dollar goes. I clip coupons from the Foodland flyer. I buy Milo's winter boots a size too big so they last 2 seasons. I know the markdown schedule at the Fortinos on Centennial Parkway because I wrote it on a sticky note inside my cupboard door. But when Milo stands at the balcony door in the evenings and watches for my headlights in the parking lot below, none of the arithmetic matters. He presses his face against the glass and his breath fogs it in a little circle, and I can see him from the lot when I pull in. This small, warm shape, waiting. That is what I bought. That is what the deed means. Every inch of it. My brother Anton is 3 years older than me, which makes him 35. We grew up together in the east end of Hamilton, and for most of our lives he was the one my parents, my father Gerald and my mother Norma, centered everything around. Not from cruelty, just from habit, the way some families organize themselves without ever deciding to. Anton was funny and charming, and he filled up a room, and I spent most of my childhood at the edge of whatever room he was filling. He moved to Toronto in his mid-20s, worked in sales and marketing, and was in a long relationship with a woman named Robin. They had a son together, Drew, who is 5 now and lives with Robin in Vancouver. Anton sees Drew rarely, A week in the summer if the flights work out, a few days at Christmas if the timing lines up. He has never said to me, in so many words, that losing day-to-day contact with Drew broke something in him. But I saw it the first time he told me. That particular blankness in a person who has run out of things to say and is holding very still so nothing else falls. I thought about that blankness later, when I finally understood the shape of everything. Not because it excused anything, because it explained everything. By last November, the Toronto apartment he shared with his girlfriend Kira was gone. Her name was on the lease. They split temporarily and then got back together, but the apartment was gone regardless. The marketing contract he'd been on dried up in the fall. He called me on a Sunday evening when Milo was already asleep. "I just need 6 weeks," he said, "maybe 8. I've got 2 interviews lined up. I'll be out of your hair before Milo's Christmas concert, I swear." My mother Norma had called me earlier that same afternoon. I understood later that they had coordinated. She was very warm about it, which was how I knew it was serious. "He's your brother, Georgia. He doesn't have anywhere to go. You have that second bedroom." I did have the second bedroom. It was more of a storage room with aspirations, but I had a blow-up mattress and a spare set of sheets. He had helped me move when I was 22, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs in July without complaining once. I remembered that. Families survive on the memory of the one good thing. I told Anton he could stay 6 to 8 weeks. He showed up with 2 duffel bags and a duffel bag attitude. That is to say, someone genuinely planning to leave. Within 10 days it was 4 bags. By the 3rd week, Kira had appeared for the weekend and had not entirely left after it. I added Anton to Milo's authorized pickup list at Westmount the 2nd week he was there, because I ran late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My clinic does a late afternoon walk-in session, and I couldn't afford extended care. It felt practical, it felt like a gift to both of us. I have thought about that signature more times than I can count. It is a strange thing to hand someone the keys to your life and call it convenience. The signs came early. I just read each one alone instead of in sequence, and alone they were all explainable. Kira began keeping her toiletries in my washroom. Fine, guests need somewhere to put things. The second bedroom started being called our room by Anton in casual conversation. My coworker Shen noticed something shift in my face when I mentioned it and said very quietly, "You're allowed to tell people what's okay in your own home." I laughed it off. I have spent most of my life laughing things off. Milo started having trouble sleeping. He clung to me in the mornings at school drop-off, his fingers hooked into my coat collar. He'd been dry at night for 2 years, and then, almost overnight, he wasn't anymore. His teacher, Ms. Tobin, pulled me aside at the classroom door one Wednesday morning. She is young, careful in the way that good primary teachers are, the kind of person who tracks which child is quiet on which day and why. "Milo mentioned something about his room," she said, weighing each word before setting it down, "about someone else's things being in it. He seemed anxious, probably just the adjustment." "My brother's staying with us temporarily," I said. "He's adjusting." I was doing a lot of adjusting things that winter. A month in, I noticed the mail situation. Anton had updated his permanent mailing address through Canada Post without telling me. The building super, Mr. Ferreira, mentioned it in passing. "You don't update your permanent mailing address somewhere you're staying 6 to 8 weeks. I found the storage situation by accident. Our building has an assigned locker in the basement for each unit. Mine was always full of Milo's outgrown things, a tricycle, bins of clothes I kept meaning to donate to Value Village. I went down in early January for some summer gear and stopped in the doorway. 3 boxes had appeared that weren't mine. Anton's name was on one of them in black marker. When I asked, he said he'd reorganize to make space. "It was too cluttered," he said, not looking up from his phone. "You'll thank me." He said, "Your locker," as if he was doing me a favor inside my own property. I let it go. I had spent 30 years letting things go for Anton, and I was efficient at it by now. The day Milo stopped wanting Anton to pick him up was the first time something in my chest shifted from vague unease into something sharper. He wouldn't say why. He pressed his mouth together and shook his head, with that expression children have when they are keeping something to protect you, or to protect themselves from what telling you might cost. "You can tell me anything," I said, the way I always said it. "Nothing bad will happen." He nodded. He did not believe me. Later, much later, I understood why. The Tuesday it happened, I was updating insurance information at the front desk when the watch buzzed. I heard Milo before I understood what I was hearing. Then I understood, and I was already moving. "Uncle Anton says you're not allowed home anymore. He says it's his apartment now." I drove 34 minutes. The 403 was backed up past Mohawk and I took side streets I hadn't used since high school, and I still don't know exactly how I got there in that time, only that every red light felt like a door closing in front of me. I called the watch back. It rang 7 times. Milo's recorded voice came through the speaker. "Hi, it's Milo. Leave a message after the beep and I'll call you back." He had been so proud of the word after. He had practiced it 4 times before recording it. I texted Anton 3 words. "What is happening?" He replied in under a minute. "Everything's fine, don't overreact." I pulled into the parking lot at 4:17 and took the elevator to the 4th floor with my hands steadier than they had any right to be. I knocked on my own door. The chain lock was on. Not the deadbolt, I had my key for that. The chain, which can only be engaged from the inside. I could push the door open 4 inches and see a strip of my own hallway, Milo's rain boots on the mat, the framed photo of us at Confederation Park that I've had hanging there since I moved in. Anton's voice came from somewhere further in. "Georgia, you need to calm down before we talk." "Open the door, Anton." "You're upset. Let's talk when you're calmer." "Open the door or I'm calling Mr. Ferreira." A pause. I heard him say something to Kira, a stage whisper not meant to be quiet. I called Mr. Ferreira. He came up in 7 minutes with a master key and the quiet authority of a man who had been building super for 22 years and had seen most things. He did not look surprised. He looked tired. Anton opened the chain before Mr. Ferreira had to use the master key. He had the expression of someone who had practiced looking reasonable and was wearing it carefully. Milo was in his room. He heard me in the hallway, and I heard him, the small thump of feet hitting the floor, and he was wrapped around my waist before I was through the doorway. He was still in his school clothes. His backpack was still on, the straps digging into his shoulders, because no one had thought to take it off. He hadn't eaten. I unclipped the straps and set the bag on his bed and held him, and over his head I looked at the shelf where he kept his stuffed animals. They were in a pile on the floor. Not arranged the way he kept them, the specific, personally significant order he rearranged weekly, just heaped in a corner like they'd been cleared. Anton appeared in the doorway. "I need you to understand that I'm trying to help. This living situation isn't sustainable. For anyone. Milo needs—" "Don't." It came out quieter than I meant. "Don't tell me what Milo needs." My mother called while I was still in Milo's room. Then my father, Gerald. He did most of the talking on that call, which was its own signal. He spoke about stability, about how stressed I seemed, about how Kira was home all day, and didn't it just make sense, just for a little while, for Milo to be somewhere with more consistent supervision. Somewhere, as though the question of where my son slept was a logistical problem, and not the whole orientation of my life. "I'm fine," I said. "You've been through a lot, sweetheart," my father said. "Since Darren left, we just worry." There it was, the soft landing for the sharpest thing. My divorce, my single parenthood, dressed up as concern and delivered gently. Not an accusation. Never an accusation. Just a worry. The kind of love you can't argue with without looking exactly as fragile as they're suggesting you might be. My mother got on briefly. "Just think about it. Milo loves Anton. It wouldn't be forever." I said I would call them back. I did not call them back. That night I packed a bag for Milo and we drove to the Comfort Inn on Upper James, because I was not about to leave my son alone in that condo, and I was not going to fight in front of him. We got a room with a little table by the window. He ate vending machine crackers for dinner and told me they were delicious. I let him think so. After he fell asleep, I opened the companion app on my phone, the one linked to his watch. I had barely used it in months. I opened it now because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. There was a call log going back 3 months, and below it a folder of audio messages Milo had sent me over the past 6 weeks. Messages I had listened to halfway between patient appointments, filed away as toddler chatter, told myself I would re-listen to and never did. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and played them in order. 5 weeks back, his voice light and confused at once. Mommy, Uncle Anton's friend came and she looked at your room. She measured things with a tape. Is that okay? I had been driving when that one arrived. I had assumed a contractor of some kind. I had told Milo not to worry about grown-up things. 3 weeks back, quieter. Mommy, Uncle Anton says this is going to be his apartment. He says you're getting a smaller place. Are we moving? I had been between patients. I had sent back a heart emoji and a talk soon baby. I had not called. I had not asked a single follow-up question. 8 days back. So quiet, I had to press the phone to my ear and turn the volume all the way up. Mommy, Uncle Anton says if I tell you what they're planning, you'll be really mad and then you'll go away. Like Daddy did. He says I shouldn't tell. I played that one 4 times. Each time it went in a little deeper. My 6-year-old had been carrying that for 8 days. He had been told by an adult he was supposed to trust with his life, that telling his mother the truth would drive her away. The same way his father had gone. And still he had tried to warn me, in the only way available to him, through a little watch on his wrist, sending messages into a phone I wasn't listening to closely enough. There are things you don't forgive yourself for right away. That one took time. I started making a different kind of list. Dolores Marino lives on the 3rd floor and has for 16 years. She is 67, sharp-eyed, and takes her recycling to the compactor room at 6:30 every morning, which means she sees everything that happens in our parking lot before anyone else is awake. We had a neighborly relationship built on small kindnesses and a shared understanding of which way the hallway drain sloped. I knocked on her door the next morning. She invited me in for tea, without asking why I was there, which told me she had been waiting for the conversation. He's been moving things out of your locker for weeks, she said, both hands around her mug. Boxes. I watched from my balcony more than once. I almost called you. She paused. I should have called you. She had seen Kira measuring the balcony with a tape measure in late December. She had heard Anton on his phone in the parking lot one afternoon, telling someone the unit was a good size and that they'd have it sorted by end of February. This was January. End of February, I said. That's what he said. I went to see Mr. Ferreira next. The building's security cameras covered the lobby, both elevator banks, the parking lot, and the stairwells. He pulled the footage without asking why. 22 years of building management gives a person a particular instinct. The footage showed Anton and Kira loading large boxes into Kira's car on 3 separate mornings. It showed them arriving with a woman I didn't recognize, someone with a notepad, looking at things in a deliberate, professional way, and waiting in the lobby while she went upstairs. The date stamp was over a month ago. A friend of Kira's who worked in real estate, I found out later. They had been assessing the unit while I was at the clinic, and Milo was at school, building a case the same way you build anything, slowly, when no one is watching. The last thing I found by accident. Milo had a stomach bug back in October, and I had let Anton borrow my old tablet to look up clinic wait times at the nearest Service Ontario location. He had returned it without logging out of his messages. I only opened the app now because I couldn't sleep and was looking for a podcast. The messages were between Anton and Kira. They went back to November, before he had even called me to ask about staying. I'll stay a few months, one read, and then I'll have enough leverage. She's on her own, she needs the help, she'll let me. And from 6 weeks before that Tuesday, she added me to the kids' school pickup. We're in. Once Milo's used to the routine, it'll be easy. And Kira's reply, what about ownership? Anton, she's the registered owner, but it won't matter if the family backs us up on the stability argument. Her ex left, she's been struggling. That's the story. That's the story. My life, flattened into a narrative he had written for an audience I didn't know was watching. And then the real why arrived, and it was something I had to sit down for. Anton had a son he barely saw anymore. Drew was 5 years old and lived across the country, and Anton's relationship with him had been reduced to a week in the summer and Christmas, if the flights worked out. He had lost that daily presence, the ordinary texture of a child's life, and he had found a 6-year-old, almost exactly the right age, living in a home he had already decided he deserved more than I did. He did not want my condo, not really. He wanted the life inside it. He wanted to replace the son he had lost daily access to with a boy who was right there, willing to trust him, already calling him uncle. He had not planned to just take the property. He had planned to take the family. I sat in that comfort inn room until the sun came up. My parents held a family dinner the following Sunday. My mother called it a clearing the air dinner. She said she wanted everyone to sit down like adults. The whole thing was framed as reconciliation. I knew what it was. It was the room where they planned to finish it. I said I would be there. I brought Milo, because I was not leaving him anywhere he hadn't chosen to be. My parents in the East End was full when we arrived. My Aunt Sheila and Uncle Ron were there. 2 cousins I only see at holidays. My father Gerald at the head of the table with the good dishes out, the ones that only appeared for real occasions, and everyone arranged to witness something. Anton and Kira were already there. He had placed Milo's stuffed fox, the one Milo slept with every single night, into a small doll outfit that belonged to a child neither of them had any connection to. A small stage detail, a piece of a future he was already decorating. I set the fox on the counter and got Milo a plate of food, and I sat down and I waited. My mother stood after the main course, which told me she had rehearsed this. She tapped her wine glass with a spoon, and the room went quiet in the particular obedient way it always went quiet for her. I think we all know why we're really here, she said warmly. We love Georgia, we love Milo, we love Anton. And as a family, we've been watching and worrying, and we've come to a decision, out of love, that for the time being, Milo is going to stay with Anton and Kira. They have the space, the time, the stability that Georgia, bless her, just isn't able to provide right now. She reached under the table and placed a small notebook on the surface, face down, one manicured hand resting on top of it. It's what's best for that little boy. The room looked at me, every face around that table, waiting for the moment I would fold. Anton couldn't help himself. He never could, in front of an audience. He placed his hand on Milo's shoulder, that easy practiced motion of someone reclaiming what they consider theirs. I'm there every single day, he said. He needs that kind of consistency. I know him better than anyone in this room right now. Milo moved his shoulder. One deliberate, small movement, pulling out from under Anton's hand. Then he slid off his chair and came to stand beside me. He didn't say anything, he didn't need to. 6 years old, and he already understood, more clearly than anyone else at that table, which direction home was. I put my hand on his back. I looked around at all of them. Then I took my phone out and set it on the table, face up. Before anyone in this family decides where Milo lives, I said, and I was surprised by how level my own voice came out. I think there are a few things everyone here should hear. My mother started to say my name. I pressed play before she could finish it. Milo's voice came out of the speaker and landed in that quiet dining room the way a stone lands in still water. Uncle Anton says if I tell you what they're planning, you'll be really mad and then you'll go away. Like Daddy did. Forks stopped moving. My Aunt Sheila put her hand over her mouth. Somewhere at the far end of the table a chair creaked as someone leaned forward. I let the silence hold for a moment. the way my mother always lets silence do her work. Because I had learned that from her, and it turned out to be the most useful thing she ever taught me. "That is my son," I said. "Recorded on his watch 8 days ago while I was at work. Someone in this room told a 6-year-old boy that telling his mother the truth would make her leave him the way his father did. Think about who that person is." I pulled up the building security footage on my phone and turned the screen so the relatives nearest me could see it clearly. Anton and Kira, loading boxes into her car. 3 separate mornings. Date stamped. My belongings being carried out of my storage locker over the course of 6 weeks while I paid the mortgage and drove Milo to school and held other people's hands at the clinic. "This is from my building's security camera," I said. "The property manager helped me access it. Everything is time-stamped." I set the tablet next to the footage and opened the message thread. Anton's own words to Kira in November. "She's on her own, she needs the help, she'll let me." My father Gerald picked up the tablet. He read the screen once. Then he read it again. When he set it down, his face had changed, not with anger exactly, but with something quieter. The expression of a man who has just understood that he has been wrong about something important for a very long time, and cannot unknow it. He turned to Anton. When he spoke, his voice was not the one he used at parties. "You planned this before you even called her." Anton opened his mouth. Nothing useful came out. "And Milo." My father's voice dropped further. "You told a little boy his mother was going to leave him." I placed Miss Tobin's notes on the table last, printed from the email she had sent me that Friday when I explained what was happening. Dated, factual, written in a teacher's careful, unhurried print. Every afternoon Milo had arrived at school distressed and withdrawn. Every single one of those afternoons was a day Anton had picked him up. Not one was a day he had come from me. The notebook my mother had placed on the table sat there unopened. She did not reach for it. Whatever was inside it, she seemed to understand in the last few minutes that it no longer had any function. Kira stood without saying anything to anyone and left. The front door closed quietly behind her, which somehow made it worse. Anton sat for another minute. He looked at my father, who was staring at the table. He looked at my mother, who was looking at her hands. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and placed a key on the table next to the bread plate. My spare key, the one I had given him when he arrived. He set it down and he left, and my key sat there on the good tablecloth beside the untouched dessert, and that was that. The dinner dissolved the way these things do, not with any dramatic exit. With people finding their coats, deciding they had somewhere to be, saying things that weren't quite apologies, and weren't quite nothing. My Aunt Sheila caught me at the door and hugged me, hard and fast, and said she should have called me directly when my mother sent that group text. She said she was ashamed she hadn't. I told her she should have, and I meant it, and I squeezed her arm anyway, because at least she had the decency to say it out loud. A cousin who had sent a thumbs up in the family chat walked past me without making eye contact. I noticed. I don't think anyone expected me not to notice. I drove Milo home to our condo, the one with my name on the deed, where a locksmith I had booked earlier that afternoon had already rekeyed every lock and left the new keys in an envelope with Mr. Ferreira. When we walked in, Milo went directly to his room and put his stuffed animals back on the shelf in the order that made sense to him. The fox in the center, the bear on the left, the small fabric whale at the end. He stepped back and looked at it. "Is it okay now?" he asked. "It's okay now," I said. He nodded like that was settled and went to brush his teeth. The weeks that followed had none of the drama of that Sunday. Real consequences rarely do. Anton and Kira were out of the building by the end of the month. He sent a text 3 weeks later. "I'm staying with a friend in Oakville. I hope you understand I did what I thought was right for Milo." And I did not reply because I did not know how to begin answering a sentence that was entirely about his intentions and contained not one word about what any of it had cost his nephew. He never faced a courtroom over any of it. There was no arrest, no official proceeding. Real consequences are quieter than that and in their way heavier. He lost the place he was staying. He lost the cousins who had backed him. He lost the version of himself he'd spent years presenting to everyone. The good son, the reliable one, the man who stepped up. When your whole identity is built on convincing people you are the dependable one, being finally seen clearly is the reckoning. There is no appealing it. My father Gerald called 4 days after the dinner. He asked if he could come by. He sat at my kitchen table with his coffee in both hands and said, "I knew something felt wrong, and I went along with it because it was easier. I've been doing that his whole life. I'm sorry, Georgia, for that specifically." He didn't try to soften it or explain it away. He let it be what it was. I told him he could see Milo on Saturday afternoons. He comes every week now, careful and patient, taking his cues from Milo, which is the only thing I ever needed him to do. It is not everything, but it is real, and I don't close doors on people who are genuinely trying to walk through them the right way. My mother Norma called several times in the weeks that followed. The first call was about how she hadn't fully known. The second was about how difficult this had all been for her. The third was about how she hoped I understood she had only ever wanted what was best for everyone. She has not apologized, not once, not directly, not for her specific role. I have stopped waiting. She is welcome to a relationship with Milo on the same terms I offered my father, in the open, with me present, or not at all. She has not yet decided whether those terms are acceptable to her, and that is her decision to sit with. I updated the pickup authorization at Westmount the morning after the dinner. It took 3 minutes. Ms. Tobin was at the front desk, and she hugged me. I signed the new form, which she had already prepared because she had been waiting for me to come. Milo sees a play therapist now, Thursday afternoons, with a woman named Dr. Varga who has a room full of sand trays and small figures and lets Milo decide what story he's telling. He is coming back to himself in the gradual way that children do, so gradually you almost miss it happening, until one morning you realize he hasn't woken at 3 a.m. in 2 weeks, hasn't pressed his mouth shut in that way that meant he was holding something too heavy for him. Last Tuesday he called me at the clinic from his watch, not because anything was wrong. He just wanted to tell me he had learned to spell dinosaur at school, and that it had more letters than he expected, and that Ms. Tobin said he got every single one right. I told him that was a very hard word, and he should be proud. He said he was and hung up, delighted with himself. I still have the watch app on my phone. I still have those voice messages saved. I have never deleted them, not because I want to hold on to the worst of it, but because I want to remember what it cost me to not listen closely enough, and what it cost my son to be braver than any of the adults around him were being. My grandmother Elsa used to say that a home is not a building. She said it in the firm, correcting way she had, like she was clearing up a misunderstanding she'd seen too many times. A house should be the one place where a child never has to be afraid. She said it like a rule, not a wish. I used to think that rule was about walls, and a deed, and a mortgage I could barely carry. Now I know it means something simpler and much harder to protect. There is a name on my title, and it is mine, and it always will be, but a home is not the deed. A home is the person still standing at the door when you finally pull into the lot after a long day, the small warm shape with a fogged circle of breath against the glass, waiting. Every evening now, when I come in and drop my bag and Milo runs at me full speed from wherever he's been and wraps himself around my waist like I've been gone a year instead of 8 hours, I know exactly what I'm standing inside. It is not a large condo. To him it is the whole world. And I will protect every inch of it, this time, without asking anyone's permission to do so.